For today's Essential Heretics 101 feature, we talked to Silicon Valley operator Molly Graham on founder depression, imposter syndrome, executive team dynamics, and building business-first people operations at scaling companies.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the HR Heretics podcast.
Today, we're excited to bring you a conversation with Molly Graham. Molly Graham is a Silicon Valley legend. She was at Google and then early Facebook and then the 9th employee at Quip before they sold for $750 million. Molly blew our minds, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it.
Molly Graham, welcome to HR Heretics. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks. Nice to see you guys.
Thanks for being on. So you have maybe two of the most viral first round articles of all time, giving away your Legos and why you need to make friends with the monster chewing at your leg. Can you give some insights into our audience as to what drove these articles and what made you write them?
I appreciate you mentioning the monster article because most people only talk about the Legos article, and they're both near and dear to my heart. The Legos article was an accident because it's a metaphor I came up with when I was working at Google. Google was 15,000 people at the time, but my department was 25 people when I joined. I joined in communications, and it grew from 25 people to 125 people in 9 months. And I just noticed a pattern when people had to give things away, where it created a lot of insecurity. You know, somebody new joins, you're worried they're going to be better than you. I sort of vividly remember early on, I was in the communications department at Facebook for 2 months, and I had to take over the blog from someone else. We didn't even have a Facebook page at that time. And the woman I was taking it over from was having a lot of trouble giving it away because she had built it from nothing. And I actually talked to her about the Legos metaphor at the time, where I was just like, look, this is hard. This is what this feels like, but there can be a lot of opportunity on the other side if you let go of things. And it helped. I also think what it is that people don't talk about emotions at work all that much. We talk a lot about how to scale. We talk a lot about how to manage. We talk a lot about how to lead, but we don't talk about how hard it is and how emotional it is and how scary it is. And the fact that, every day you wake up and you're like, everyone around me is better than me, and who even gave me this job in the first place. And I always say, I think the Legos article just says, don't worry, it's all going to be okay. And that's why people like it so much. And then the monster article is the same thing, maybe just a little deeper. I was raised on the Muppets, so I think that's why he's a monster. I always think he's like Animal or something like that, but, it became my metaphor for all these emotions that you have when you're going through these complex experiences building a company. And it helped me to externalize it. And that's how I came up with Bob, my monster. He's just the external manifestation of all the emotions that I call them monster attacks. So you're having a bad day and somebody's being a jerk and you want to write the rage email. I always say, that's Bob. That's my monster's name is Bob. I tell people they can name their monster whatever they want. It helped me to externalize it. It helped me to sort of manifest it in a picture. And then once that article came out, somebody actually told me it's a literal tool that psychologists use to help people manage anxiety. And I was like, oh, great. Turns out awesome. It's actually helpful. So yeah.
You were at the beginning of the coining the imposter syndrome, right? Wave. I do have a question about that because that was a while back. And I feel like it's common now, right? People lean into talking about imposter syndrome and Legos. Do you think the industry has shifted a lot with that? Because back when you published those, it was kind of taboo, or more taboo, I would argue, than now.
Yeah, I think probably it has shifted. I think for any number of reasons, we've gotten better at talking about work and feelings, but nobody really talks about founder depression. Nobody really talks about that experience of founding a company and how emotionally hard it is. And there was a couple founder suicides around the time that I was thinking about the monster article. And, I felt like we were not talking enough about the tornado of feelings that happen as you're building something, and particularly if you're really early. I think that has gotten better, but I would say it's probably a topic you can't talk about enough, because to catch somebody before they do something dramatic, everybody needs to be talking about it. People need to normalize it and help people understand that just because they feel like everything's terrible and they're about to drive the car off a cliff, actually that's normal. That's what founding a company feels like. But yeah.
And also being an early employee at a company. Because
100%.
So you were at Google in the tens of thousands, 15,000, Facebook around 500, Quip at 9 pre-product. Walk us through the differences of going from a scaled company, and then Facebook is still, it was post-product market fit, the company's scaling really fast, to then pre-product, we haven't launched, you're the 9th employee.
I would say they were all very different, and I was unprepared for any of them. Google, I stumbled into, which sounds crazy, but and at a company that big, you identify more with the experience of your team than you do with the experience of the company. So for me, my experience at Google was defined by that scaling of the team, which was 25 to 125 employees. And then Facebook, again, stumbled in there. 500 employees, 80 million users when I joined, and I left at 5,500 employees and 1 billion plus users. And when I left Facebook, I was unprepared for what 500 employees felt like, just to be clear. But it was literally a different company every 1 to 3 months, which, a lot of companies are not that way. It was just such rapid scale. I literally thought that I had a picture in my head when I left Facebook, and I, took some time off and did a job search that was very short. Ended up going to Quip. I thought startups were just a lot of hard work. And I think I was absolutely floored in the first 6 months by the emptiness of startups and the sort of feeling of loneliness and the feeling of everything we do might not work. I got run over by a truck. We launched, and I knew exactly what launches felt like. And then we got to the other side of the launch, and it was just nobody cared, And when I was hiring employees into Quip, I tested them on this because we hired a couple of people from Facebook and Google. And I was like, are you cool working for some place that nobody cares about? Are you cool selling a brand that no one's ever heard of and people aren't going to want to take your call? And so with Quip, I was in a dark phase about the 3 months after the launch. And I really had just this feeling of this car driving off a cliff or something. And because I thought it was all my fault or something. And I went out to lunch with a friend of mine who later ended up working at Quip. And he had worked in the 0 to 1 space before, which I never had. And I was explaining to him how I was feeling, which was really hard because I just thought it was an expression of us failing or something like that. And he was like, yeah, welcome to startups. I was like, oh, this is normal? And it literally took the weight off my shoulders just because somebody told me, yeah, that's how everybody feels. And I feel that's the power is when somebody says, yeah, you're supposed to feel this way. And you're like, oh, okay. I always say life is a barter economy. And that is actually how you build a really strong network. You do things for people, and then in 2 years or whatever, they owe you a favor. What you want with a powerful network is a lot of people that would do anything for you. And that means to earn that, you have to do a lot of things for other people. And I have a very broad network of people in the world that would do anything for me because I've done a lot of stuff for them. And I don't think of it as they owe me. I just think of it as we do stuff for each other. And that is how you build a network. With jobs, it's the same thing. You want people to want to work with you again. So first of all, don't be a dick when you're at your company. Second of all, stay in touch with people. Every time I leave a company, I make a list of people that I loved working with, and I just stay in touch with them. I definitely have a really high risk tolerance. I don't really think of it that way because I think of it as getting bored easily. I enjoy learning curves that are so steep that I'm scared I'm going to fall off them. I have this concept of legs of a stool for work happiness. For me, my legs are a mission that matters to me, that I want to work on, people that I love and want to see every day and want to learn from. And when I say learning, what I mean is a curve so steep you're going to fall off. I was sitting at CZI, which is 10 or 12 years into my career, being who the actual fuck hired me to do this job? This is a $70 billion philanthropy and I can't do math.
Yeah.
Maybe is everybody cool with that? Yeah. And I was sitting at this table with biomedical scientists that's won every award except for a Nobel Prize, David Plouffe, who ran Obama's campaign, Jim Shelton, who was in the Obama White House and has run, a bunch of really impressive organizations. And, I'm the idiot that's sitting there pausing the conversation while they're all talking, being sorry, can I just ask a question? Do we have goals? I talk a lot about being a professional moron, and that's really what I am. These days, I actually say half of it's luck and half of it's saying yes when people ask you to do crazy things. Risk partially comes from being secure. I've had financial security and I've had people supporting me, like even Cheryl saying like, I think that project will be dead in 2 months, but you'll still have a job. Like that's a kind of security.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. AI changes how work gets done. Recruiting is no exception. Metaview is the AI platform purpose-built for recruiting. If you're looking to level up your AI adoption and see real impact from intake to offer, it's a no-brainer. Metaview's suite of AI agents works for you at every stage of the hiring process. Their platform powers instant job post creation, AI-powered candidate Q&A, insights on pipeline performance, compensation, and so much more. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in candidate debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes all of that. For every candidate in every pipeline, bring radical efficiency and precision to your hiring process with perfect data from every conversation. Metaview covers all of your compliance needs, works with all of your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at more than 3,000 elite companies like Brex, Deel, 11 Labs, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Just head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts or get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes.
I think a lot of people are going to learn from you and learn from this episode. On that note, you've worked with amazing teams. I'm curious about like what it's like when teams are working and also when teams aren't working and how you dissect that and how you go about getting teams to work well together.
I will just say that like there's a saying in the tech industry, growth solves all problems. I actually very strongly believe that's true, meaning you can have highly dysfunctional companies that have a magical product market fit, and that dysfunction will get them actually pretty far. It never ceases to amaze me, the level of dysfunction underneath some of the, $10 and $50 billion, more, I would say $10 billion companies. It hits you at some point, the dysfunction. But the first thing that matters is your business. And if your business is sucking, the dysfunction shows up more clearly. I've built a couple really happy, high-performing teams in dysfunctional businesses. And I think that's hard to do. It's actually one of the hardest tasks because when all your goals are red or when, the number isn't what your investors want it to be, like to have a team that's happy and loves working together it's an extra effort, One thing we don't talk enough about is the fact that if your leaders don't like each other and don't get along, everything's going to be shitty inside your company. Like if your engineering leader and your product leader don't enjoy working together, it is going to be very, very hard to effectively ship code. Because those two people have a bunch of friction and tension, and it's going to show up in meetings, it's going to show up in process, and it reverberates down into their team. Suddenly the product managers don't like the engineers or whatever. Same on the marketing and sales side. I've been talking to more and more founders about recently as they hire their first executive teams or their second executive teams is not just hiring individuals, but hiring a team and really thinking through that team formation, both like what roles you actually need, and then also the kind of person. I always say there's the what, and then there's the how, right? So there's like, what are you hiring for? What kind of experience? What kind of background? What kind of skills? What kind of seniority? And then there's the how. How do you want them to do their work? A lot of times we don't focus on that how, and it leads to leadership teams that hate each other, and then it's just like a mess underneath them, and then you're not hitting your goals because your sales leader and your marketing leader hate each other.
How do you think about assessing for that as part of, I think executive recruiting is a mess. And so how do you assess for those skills, specifically the relational skills between cross-functional execs?
I actually think I'm a really good recruiter. I learned from a woman named Jamie Tolata Green, who's like one of the best recruiters in go-to-market in the world. My average is 50%. It also means you have to be as good at letting people go, at parting ways when it's not right, and doing that efficiently as you are at hiring. There was this really amazing recruiter who I think was maybe the first recruiter at Facebook, named Andy Barton. And he taught me a psychological interview by doing one on me where he really I would call it a motivation interview. But a lot of what I do is just try to understand people deeply. Who are you? Where do you come from? You know, what made you make the decisions you've made? What have you learned? Like, how do you talk about yourself and your teams? And really, why are we even having this conversation? Like, what brought you to my front door? And I remember looking for one role. I can't remember what it was. I think it was marketing. And I interviewed someone that I was like, this person is very talented, like more talented than anybody else I was talking to, and just came with a backpack full of ego. I could feel it coming through the Zoom. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. Like, you're so great. And I just could not hire you because you would destroy my team. And it's not worth it to me because I don't want to make the whole company dysfunctional in order to have this level of talent, you know?
We've had some hot takes recently on the tenure for early stage executives. It's 18 months, it's a year, it's 2 years. What do you think about that?
I tell people 18 months. Like, when I'm helping CEOs build leadership teams, like, a lot of what I talk about is like, they're like 5 years from now. And I'm like, yeah, cute. 18 months. I had a conversation once with John Collison at Stripe, and I just casually said, you know, look, there's so much churn in early stage executives teams. It's one of the most painful phases, and really most leaders don't last more than 2 years. The exception is the leader that lasts longer than 2 years. John said to me, you know, that really calmed down for us after 1,000 employees. And then I reflected on it and realized that was true for Facebook too. Like, Facebook had a huge amount of churn in the first 1,000 employees. And then they built a leadership team, Cheryl and Mark, that stayed forever. Like, it was the same people for 10 years, I think. So anyway, I think there's just a huge amount of churn, and somewhat rightly so if you're growing quickly, in the sense that, like, it's just hard for someone to be as good at sort of the like 5 million to 20 million to 50 million as they are at 100 million plus in terms of revenue. And then, you know, similarly, like, if you're not growing, sometimes you've got people hitting the wrong nail with the wrong tool. You know, they're using a pony instead of a hammer or whatever. So
Totally.
And it makes sense. I mean, you said Facebook was a different company every 1 to 3 months, like totally different company. And I think that's something I've seen, is that people used to feel bad about that. And I think it's not taboo anymore. Yeah, I'm here for a certain phase. It's a tour of duty and I'm moving on. And that used to be not a great look, even like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, totally. I think it's complicated, but the best execs that I work with, that I've hired, that I've worked for, whatever, hold on to power very loosely and are just like, listen, I'm here while I'm the right person to be here. I'm here to build the biggest company I can build. And at some point, if it's not me, like, that runs this thing, like, great, I'll find the right person, or I'll build the right team under me, or whatever, you know.
I have one more quick one for you, Molly. What is the biggest misconception are you seeing founders having around HR leader roles, chief people officers? What are you telling them?
Interesting. Can I rephrase the question? It's interesting. I'll just tell you the question I want to answer, which is like, what am I seeing founders want and ask for that maybe isn't as common in the HR space? Every founder I talk to right now wants an operational head of people, meaning they want a head of people that thinks about the business and understands the business and understands that at the end of the day, they're not responsible for employee happiness. They're responsible for one of the largest budget items inside the company. They're responsible for unit economics, because at the end of the day, like most companies, most software companies, the two biggest expenses are people and servers. You know, obviously, if you have like a retail business, there's other costs. But if people are the biggest expense inside of a company, how do you as a people leader think about running the process of filling those seats well? And being economically and fiscally responsible to the business and the business that needs to be built. I think sometimes we have focused so much on happiness that we've forgotten that everybody's going to be unhappy if there's no business. And I see founders pretty desperate for partnership that understands that at the end of the day, this is a business. And if the business doesn't work, which there's a lot of these days, no one has a job. So I think that, like, for me, if I were to like gift something to the sort of people leaders of the world, it would be an understanding that everything has to be business first. That doesn't mean people can't be happy. I actually think people like winning. Number one, growth solves all problems, right? Like people like winning. They like being part of a company that's winning. That makes people happy first and foremost. And so the business is there for everyone to unite around and to try to solve together. And a lot of other stuff is frankly a distraction. And I think that conversation is, I guess I've always sort of felt that way, but it's really important these days because, somebody said to me this week that they did math in PitchBook and there's 1,200 companies that haven't raised and might go out of business next year if they don't raise. And if that's true, then there's going to be a lot of acquisitions for sure, but there's also going to be a lot of folks that can't get acquired and aren't going to be able to raise. And it just means that the business of how people show up and how they help build companies and how they help companies achieve their goals is more important. But it is, at the end of the day, a part of a business. The goal is to make the business thrive.
Could not agree more.
And the era of luxurious beliefs is over.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say the era of excess is over, but yeah, for sure. Turns out unit economics matter. Who knew?
We're back. We're going to go through our rapid fire questions. And so I'm actually really curious about this one for you because you've hired so many great people. Who's your best hire and why?
Best hire? Come on.
One person.
I have so many. No, I can't do it.
Humble brag. No. Oh, there's so many. One person.
No, it's not me. It's them. I like have gotten to work with so many incredible people in my life. And it would be like, I don't even know, picking a favorite kid. They're all my favorite. I love them. I've learned, I don't even know. I couldn't answer the question.
It is true. You have worked with amazing people on your team. Tell us about the best interview question to get signal on them.
Find your interview style and the one that works for you. What I start with is tell me your story. I love where they go and it helps me, but that's because I'm me. And it's because I listen in a certain way and I probe in a certain way and I ask questions in a certain way.
I love that. Molly Graham, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
So good. Thank you, Molly.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys. So fun.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment is Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.